Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Draw Control Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by former Slippery Rock University women's lacrosse player Charleigh Rondeau. In Charleigh's lacrosse career, she has 68 goals, 39 assists, 107 ground balls, and a whopping 550 draw controls in her career. This has allowed Charleigh to win the 2024 IWLCA D2 Scholar-Athlete of the Year award. She also won the 2023 PSAC West Athlete of the Year award. She owns the program record for games played and draw controls. She is a three-time All-PSAC honoree and a three-time CSC Academic All-America honoree. And we're super excited to have her on today. So welcome to the podcast, Charleigh, and how is everything going?
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Everything's been good. I'm adjusting to post-grad life. I just started my full-time job a couple weeks ago, so I'm excited. I'm enjoying the next chapter, so it's been good.
Yeah, sort of one of my first questions I want to ask you was obviously a few months ago you graduated college. So I guess what have you been up to since then? And do you still plan on being involved with lacrosse now that your college career is over?
Yeah, so I finished up my last class for my master's program in July. And then kind of started my job hunt, took a little time to relax, adjust. And then, like I said, I started working about 2 weeks ago. As far as getting involved with lacrosse, I don't have any plans yet, but I'd really like to, like, especially for the upcoming season and maybe even in the winter, get involved with like some of the local high schools, maybe my high school, Amherst, and maybe some club teams too. So definitely looking into that.
Well, let's start off the podcast talking about the beginning of your lacrosse career and sort of working all the way up to where you are today. So, from the research I did on yourself, it says that you're from Buffalo, New York. So, talk about growing up there and how did you start playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so growing up in Buffalo, I guess at least for me, lacrosse wasn't a sport that a lot of people played in elementary school or like maybe as common as soccer or another sport like that. It wasn't really until middle school or maybe even high school that people started playing lacrosse. It was just something that you started like while you were in school. Um, for me, I started in seventh grade. I was actually, um, I remember I was trying out, we had to do like a physical test to play on the hockey team if you were still in middle school. So I was in seventh grade trying out to be on the hockey team. And one of the teachers that was watching our like physical test was like, hey, like, you're a pretty good athlete. Why don't you try lacrosse in the spring? And I was like, okay. I was originally planning on playing softball just because that was like I don't know, something to do. I didn't play anything in the spring. And she was like, if you like hockey, you'll love lacrosse. It's just like it's the same thing except on grass. And I was like, okay. Um, so I gave it a try and I've been playing ever since and I fell in love with it.
That's awesome. Who are some of your favorite players and teams that you like to watch growing up?
I would say I was a little bit late to the game in terms of watching college lacrosse. I remember it was pretty cool. They lined up like the one of the tournaments I was playing in with like championship weekend. So I think it was my junior year of high school. I was playing out by Stony Brook and the national tournament was held in Stony Brook. So I remember going to, I think it was James Madison and BC were playing. Um, I really liked Sam Apuzzo from BC and then Kenzie Kent. I really liked and looked up to her because she was a dual sport athlete, hockey and lacrosse at BC, which I thought was super cool. So I always looked up to her.
That's awesome. And then obviously, like you mentioned before college, you played for your high school with Amherst. So
Hmm.
talk about your high school lacrosse days, what that was like for yourself, and what's like your favorite memory from your Amherst high school lacrosse days when you look back on it now.
Yeah. Um, High school was fun. It was a lot of different talent levels, I would say. So, um, for example, like my senior year, it was me and two or three other girls that were committed to play in college, but it also was a few seniors decided they wanted to try out lacrosse and they had just picked up their six for the first time. So, that was one of the unique experiences I had at Amherst, I would say. And I think honestly it helped me develop better as a player and as a teammate, just learning how to like um like deal with different players and different skill levels. So I think adapting to that and learning how to like communicate with that. And honestly, like some of the more experienced girls could then, like use their knowledge and their skill to teach younger girls. And I think that really helped me, like even going into college, just learning that maybe not everyone has the same background and like learning how to understand that and apply that to, going into college. As far as my favorite memory, I wouldn't say I have like one specific memory that was my favorite. We would always play this team Lakeshore who had a lot of girls that went on to play D1, and they were our biggest competition, biggest rival. So I'd say anytime we beat them was probably a highlight. And then the things I look back at now is more just like playing with some of my best friends to this day, bus rides, hanging out, like doing different team dinners and stuff, and just being with my team.
Now, how did your high school lacrosse days, as well as some of your club lacrosse experience, help prepare you for college lacrosse?
Um, like I said, there were so many different skill levels. So I think just taking the time, the extra time to maybe work on my left hand or just working on my stick skills and really getting those down solid was a really good tool that I had from high school going into college. Um, One thing that I think was a little bit different was the speed of the game for sure, as well as like the IQ level and knowledge of the game. That is one thing I really had to like pick up and focus on coming into college.
Now, you also played ice hockey growing up, like you mentioned. How did that sport help you in lacrosse? Because I'm a big hockey guy, so I always
Yeah.
like asking about that whenever players played that sport as well.
Yeah, I honestly think like that was the biggest thing that helped me, especially when I started out. So many of the skills, the concepts, some of the plays even, like they're just so familiar and they really helped me to like adapt and translate those skills into a new sport. So I was able to pick it up pretty quickly, I would say. Um, there were definitely a few like bad habits I had to break from that transition. Like I was a righty in hockey, so I only wanted to use my right hand. Um, and I only wanted to like rip sidearm shots. And that is not it has a time and a place, but I definitely had to adjust to that from hockey and tweak my shot and work on my left hand. But I really credit it so much to um lacrosse and just uh developing my athleticism overall.
Yeah. Who's your favorite hockey team or player?
Um I have to say the Sabres because I'm from Buffalo and that's who I've always rooted for. My favorite on the Sabres right now, I'd probably say is Dylan Cousins or Tage Thompson.
Nice. I'm a big Tage Thompson fan. I remember going to see him play at UConn a long time ago when he was in college hockey, and he was really good back then. So it's cool to see him have success in the NHL now.
Yeah, hope he has a good season this season.
I hope so too. Hopefully he stays healthy too. He had a wrist injury last year as well, which I
Yeah,
think kept him out for a lot of games and had probably some effect on his playing ability, even though you couldn't really notice it, at least from my perspective as a viewer.
yeah.
Now, talk a little about your recruiting process with Slippery Rock and what made you want to go there versus other schools you might have looked at.
Yeah, so I was a little bit late to committing to Slippery Rock. I didn't commit until I think October of my senior year, which is really late in lacrosse. Um, I was kind of between two schools the summer of my between my junior and senior year, and I couldn't decide. I kept being like, I just couldn't make a decision, and ultimately, neither of those schools that I was looking at had the academic program I wanted to go into. So I knew I needed to explore more schools that weren't just liberal arts. So that's kind of why I went to explore Slippery Rock. I had a connection. Uh, one girl that I played with in high school, a little bit older than me, but she went to Amherst and then she ended up playing at Slippery Rock. So that's how I knew of the school. And I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. She had just graduated and loved her experience. So I remember I went like on the day of their run test, and the girls were all so supportive. And like, even though that's probably like one of the worst days and like the day people dread the most, everyone was so supportive and encouraging, and it just showed me like what a great team atmosphere it was. And other than that, like academics is another main reason I chose the school, and I just love the location, not too far from home, just the right distance, and I love the campus, so it's perfect.
What was like the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse once you arrived on campus as an athlete for the first time?
I think lacrosse wise, it was the IQ. I really had to pick up my defense. A lot of the concepts, like in high school, we mainly just played man defense, and at the time, our team was running a zone defense, and I was like, I have no clue how to run that. So that was a big adjustment. And then just like transitioning into a whole different stage of your life and meeting new people, um, kind of fitting it, learning how to fit in. That was difficult, but everyone was so helpful and encouraging. And sometimes it takes time, but yeah, I had a great freshman year, except COVID, obviously, but we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, one more question before we get into that. And it was just sort of like, what's it like? You played in the PSAC conference.
Mhm.
I just want to ask you what it was like being a part of that conference and just the competition you faced each game.
Yeah, the PSAC is probably one of the best conferences in Division Two. I mean, you have Westchester, who's constantly ranked, East Stroudsburg, um, Seton Hill. Like, there's so much good competition in the PSAC, and um, I think it just shows like day in and day out, any team, especially they called us the Wild Wild West over on our side of the PSAC. Um, any team can win any game on any day. So it was just going into every game and focusing and being like, even though we just beat this team previously, like we play every team twice, even though we had just beat this team and beat them by 10, doesn't mean that they're not going to turn around and beat us. So I think it was just knowing that every team is competitive and showing up to play every single day.
Now, during your freshman year, the season was canceled due to the pandemic. How'd you handle that challenge of not playing games and with the uncertainty of when you were going to play again?
Yeah. I mean, it was like just as we were getting into the swing of things. I think it was after our fifth game, we had just played Mercyhurst and heard that the season was canceled. Well, at first we heard it was on pause. We thought we were all going home for 2 weeks and hopefully we'd be back. Um, but I remember like when we heard the news, all the seniors were crying, and obviously just felt so bad for them. We ended up having like one last team practice before we all went home. Um, and I'll always remember that. But it was difficult. And then transitioning that into coming home and doing school online, as well as like working out. It's like finding a new purpose, trying to stay motivated when your season just got cut short, and kind of trying to like realign those goals, um, and get ready for whenever we were allowed to play next, which was the next season.
Now, how have you learned to balance both academics and lacrosse at such a high level?
I would say some like academics are just something that have always been important to me, and I think that's something that my parents kind of dug in me from such a young age. So I just think carrying kind of the same techniques and um, skills that I learned in high school into college, it's obviously very different. And then with adding more lacrosse onto my plate, um, I think just the time management skills that I learned in high school are really important. Just not procrastinating, and um, especially my freshman year, I would definitely go reach out to professors, and we had mandatory study tables. So I think those are things that definitely helped me um, to stay on top of academics, and then, yeah, just balancing that with lacrosse.
Now, when you look back on it now, what's your favorite lacrosse memory with Slippery Rock?
Um, I don't I don't necessarily have one specific memory. I would just say this past year, when I decided to come back for my fifth year, we had so much that we wanted to accomplish, and we were so close my senior year. So I think just this past year, really like soaking in all the memories and time with my teammates. Obviously the games are something that are really important, but like the relationships that I made with my teammates and my coaches and everyone at Slippery Rock is just something that I'll be forever grateful for. And those are the things that I really look back at now, being like, wow, I miss hanging out with my teammates in the locker room, or traveling on bus rides, or going to spring break trips. Just seeing my best friends every day is just, I don't know, the thing I miss the most, and probably my favorite memory of being at Slippery Rock.
Now, obviously, last year you were a grad student, so what type of leadership did you want to bring towards the team? Were you more of a vocal leader or lead by example type of player?
I'm definitely more of a lead by example type of player. I'm typically, well, I'm never really the most like outspoken, outgoing person. I think that there's a time and a place for that. And I think that when you do lead by example, people will listen when you have something to say. So I think that's really important. Um, Setting the right example, not only during practice and always giving 110%, but also off the field, doing the right thing. Checking in with your teammates, um, doing well in school, just different things like that. Just trying to be a good role model and a good teammate for the rest of my team.
Now, what would you say has been the biggest improvement you've made to your game throughout your time with Slippery Rock?
I would say maybe my confidence coming in as a freshman. I would not speak up. I would go to the end of the line when we had to do a drill, or just different things like that. So now looking back at like last year, I think I was a lot more confident. Um, Maybe people would look at me to drive or take the ball to cage. So that was something I think I really improved since my freshman year. And then also um, the draw controls is something that I really focused on and wanted to improve throughout my career.
Yeah, and obviously you did because you're now the program leader of draw controls. So now that your career is over, in college, what was your secret on how you became so good at the draw circle?
Yeah, I don't really know that there's one secret necessarily. I think um a lot of reps and a lot of practice definitely helps. Um but other than that, I think it's watching film and trying to outsmart or do the opposite of what the other team is expecting. Um but like I said, film is really important. My coach and I would sit down before and after every game. So we normally play on like a Saturday, Wednesday. So somewhere in between there, we would go over what worked from the previous game, what didn't work, make adjustments there, and then we would move on to like scouting for the next game. Um, so I would see like a lot of people that take the draw have a few different tendencies. So just watching film is really helpful. Saying, if I'm going to push, what are they going to do against that? If I'm going to pull, are they going to change it up? And I think that was really helpful because we played in conference, we played each team twice. So I really got to like learn those players and learn their tendencies. And we would even go back around to the first time that we played them and see like, what did I do well? What could we improve? Um, and then, like I said, like people would scout me and I would have to say my like classic was like a righty pull. Like I would try to get it right over my right shoulder. So teams would adjust to that and maybe pull their two players over here. So then I would talk with my circle players and we would already have a plan that they would be running on, and I would push it instead. So I think just trying to like watching a lot of film and trying to like out scout your opponents. Sorry, that was a lot to say. Um, but also I could not have done it without my circle players. I don't know. We just really worked well as a unit, and I couldn't have done any of it without them.
Now, you played your final collegiate game in the PSAC tournament against Westchester University. What emotions were you feeling after that game? And overall, what will you take away from your college lacrosse career?
That game had so many emotions. That was like going into this year, that was our one goal to make playoffs, which we had never done in my career there, and then make history by winning a playoff game, which we did. So then our next game we had to play was Westchester. And that was a lot of emotions. We were trying, all the seniors and I were trying not to think of it as our last game because, we could win and move on. But obviously it had the potential to be our last game. So I think just trying to like balance all of those emotions while also like staying competitive, staying in the game, and like just trying to focus on the task at hand. Um, and I think we really did that for the first half, and we were really competitive. We were, I think, down by one at half. And I think we just let our emotions get the best of us, and we didn't end up winning the game, and it was the end of our careers. But I think it was kind of a bittersweet moment. Like in the moment, it was so sad, and I was like, wow, this is really the last time I'm gonna play lacrosse. This is the last time I'm gonna play with my best friends, my teammates. But at the same time, it was like we couldn't have asked for much more. We accomplished everything we set out to in the season, and I couldn't be more proud of our team and everyone that helped us get there. So it was good.
So now we're in a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some non-lacrosse questions to get to know you a little bit more off the field. So first one is, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
That's a tough question because I'm not really a movie person, but I would probably say Jennifer Aniston just because I like a lot of the movies that she's in. Um, yeah,
Now, if you could play a game with any professional sports team in the world, who would you pick?
I would have to say the Bills just because I love so many of those players, but I can't say I would want to play with them, but I'd like to be down on the field
I
watching
think,
them.
yeah, you can be like what's it called, a fan on the field, sort of that's your
Yeah.
role, just cheering the team on and go to every game. I think that's a cool role to have.
Yeah.
I saw a video with Josh Allen throwing like a boomerang and it like went the other way and it hit the building. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, that probably broke a window or something.
Have you ever jumped on a table before? I know a lot of Bills fans do that.
I have,
That sounds like a lot of fun.
it's part of the mafia initiation.
Okay, okay. That's one I'd love to go to a game just to do that one time. I feel like that looks like a lot of fun. But I'm a Pats
Yeah,
fan, so I don't know if they'll let me do it or not.
maybe not.
Probably not, no. But maybe there's some, I don't know, the Pats haven't been doing that well lately, so there's some, maybe people forgot about that rivalry a little bit. Who
Yeah,
knows?
ever since Tom Brady left, it hasn't been that bad, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Well, next question is who has the best off the field style on the team?
Um, I would probably say one of my best friends, Brooke Wiz. She always has the best shoes, the best outfits, always repping her Lulu. Yeah.
Now, last non-lacrosse question is, what is the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Um, I'd probably say Joe Andreessen. Have you heard of him from the Bills?
No, I haven't.
He's a local Buffalo native, who wasn't drafted or anything coming out of college, and he just made the 53-man roster.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, super cool. Good story.
I think the only thing that I found interesting was Bill Belichick joining Instagram just because he seemed very anti-social media, but now he's very pro-social media, it looks like, based on his media tour. So I thought that was pretty interesting because I never thought he would have a social media account.
Yeah, kind of interesting to get one now, but
Hey, it's always going to be popular no matter what. So I
yeah.
can see why he wants to have one, I guess. Now, getting back to some lacrosse questions now, what should be done to help grow women's lacrosse from your perspective?
Um, I think that honestly they're doing a really good job and like throughout my career and my experience in lacrosse, there has been so many improvements. Like you look now on TV and you can watch even like pro games. I think there's a lot more access to college games and like the national tournament. I think they did a really good job covering that. Having players like Charlotte North do broadcasting and stuff, like obviously draws a lot of attention. So I think that's all good. And I think adding the Olympics or adding lacrosse to the Olympics um, will bring a lot of exposure. So I think just continuing with everything that's done, and then like just people like me, like that have just come out of college, trying to give back to the sport of lacrosse and bring in new people in your area and just try to bring some more exposure to your area or however you can to give back to the sport.
Now, what advice would you give to younger lacrosse players who want to be in the position that you were in the past 5 years?
Um, One of my biggest pieces of advice, honestly, is to play multiple sports throughout like your childhood and into high school. I think focusing too much, say just focusing on lacrosse, and that's all you play in high school, it may like take some of the fun out of it or it may become too serious. And I think um it's really important to like develop as an athlete by playing multiple sports. Um and I think that that helps you learn how to be a better teammate. Um I think just yeah, overall like getting involved in many sports and not taking anything too seriously because at the end of the day, um we're all there to have fun, even though we're there for the same like common goal. Looking back at it now, like all the hard runs and all the hard practices, like you completely forget about, you just think about all the fun that you had with your teammates and all the memories that you made.
Now, before we end this interview, Charlie, do you have any shout outs you want to give to any of your teammates, family members, and friends? And who should we have on the podcast next?
I want to shout out my whole team. I'm so excited to see them for alumni weekend this weekend. Um, Obviously my parents being so supportive of everything I've done throughout my athletic and academic career. My grandparents for traveling to pretty much every single one of my games. And my grandma for always bringing the cookies. Everyone really appreciated that. And um, all of my coaches I've had throughout my entire career, I think um, they've all been so beneficial to me and really helped me learn and grow as a person and a player. So I can't thank them enough. And I'm just super grateful for everyone that has gotten me to where I am today. And I just can't thank them enough.
Well, Charlie, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day and coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I really think you're a great player, but an even better person. And I just want to let you know that. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, whatever that might be.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast.